Hello, my people. Welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Natural, where we have real experiences, real story from, of course, real people. I'm your host, Marcus Hart, and today we have with us today Marilynn Hughes. Marilynn Hughes, she founded the Out of Body Travel Foundation in 2003. Well, the mission, of course, was reduce spiritual and physical hunger worldwide. Very cool mission statement, might I add. Marilyn has written 100 books. Whoa, 100 books. 40 magazines and 18 CDs on out of body travel and comparative religious mysticism. So she's going to tell us much more about all of this so I don't struggle tongue tying myself because I haven't had my tea yet. And while she's telling us about herself, I'm going to drink some tea.
Yeah, I started having experiences over 32 years ago and originally published with Hampton Roads Publishing in 91 and 92. Founded the Out of Body Travel Foundation, as you mentioned, in 2003, and been putting out a lot of books since then. We have a ton of books on how to have the experiences, what to expect. We also have tons of books on the experiences that I've had. But at our website, we have some special things. We started out with the mission to reduce spiritual hunger worldwide. And we did that in part because Mother Teresa has said that she felt that the spiritual hunger that she saw in the West was worse than the physical hunger that she saw in the East. So we started with the spiritual hunger, but in 2004, that huge tsunami hit Indonesia. And that's when we started also adding physical hunger because of the fact that we know that when people do not have their basic needs met, they certainly can't pursue their spiritual needs.
Right.
And so we've been doing charitable projects since 2004 as well. And you can check that all out on the website as well. But one of the things that we offer to help people with reducing spiritual hunger, all of our books are available for free download at our website, which is at outofbodytravel.org. So you can download all of our books. I also have music, meditation CDs, and also artwork that I did of places that I've seen in the out-of-body travel states. Those are also all freely downloadable. Everything is also, of course, available on Audible, paperback, and digital media, but you can check it out freely. And we have a very in-depth course of study available at the site that is also free to take, that will take you through the journey that I took starting 32 years ago, and how my spiritual guides and how my angels and the masters taught me for this, this period of time. And so, if you want to see how it was done, in my case, you can really just take that journey from phase one.
Well, that is very remarkable, and you got a very interesting, business model too. I like the fact that you are offering it free, and that you started with the mission of meeting the need of those who are lost out there and need to be fed. Because there are in fact people that need to be fed. So, uh, what you know, was there a whisper in your ear that you had the answer to?
Oh, yeah. That's a great question, too, because what you have to recall, which is hard for people in today's world, in 2003, the internet was just kind of a new thing, coming in from the
Yeah.
late 90s. And one of the big things about it was a big deal to be able, and it was actually pretty hard at that time, to make everything downloadable for free. It was harder back then because everything was so slow, everything was dial up, and but actually I had a beautiful out of body experience where the prophets, saints, mystics, and sages from all world religions and from out all time came to see me, and they all told me everything needs to be downloadable for free. And they also told me exactly, basically the paperbacks are marked up $1 above printing cost. They
Mm.
told me to do that because everything we had to have some money coming in to run the foundation, but we also need to make everything available to anyone anywhere. And back in 2003, a lot of people were actually still accessing internet cafes in a lot of remote parts of the world. So
Yeah.
making things downloadable for free extremely important then, because this idea of the world being right at your fingertips was just beginning. And it was
Yeah.
really neat because a lot of people who were in countries where they could never access any kind of spiritual information were able to do so now. Excuse me. And
Okay.
they were doing it in internet cafes, and eventually libraries were able to do these things. And so making it downloadable made it accessible to almost anyone worldwide, just depending on, how remote they were. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. That's pretty cool. And, and like for a lot of people, when they get some information like that, or they get some type of bit of a direction like that, uh, the first thing they think of is like, what do I do with it?
Yeah.
They they think that like, okay, well, maybe I'm tripping out. So, you know,
Well, you have to remember at that time, I had started having these experiences in 1987. So at that time, I was already a good 15 years. I'm, probably crappy at counting here, but probably even more than 15 by that time, maybe 20. So I was having very, very intensive and deep out of body experiences. Another experience that I had around that time, except it was earlier, was where I was shown in an out of body experience a huge lighted cross emblazoned across the sky. And then
yes.
I heard the voice of Christ, and he said, "You will never make a living from the cross, but abundance will be provided to you in other ways." And it was made clear to me. I saw these different things of how the means would be provided to me. One of the
Mm.
things I learned very early on was uh, when I'm given instructions, I follow them, because, and it's interesting because I mean,
Yeah.
even down to the very last detail. In the early 1990s, I was recording the music in my garage on an old cassette 4-track player before the internet was invented, before there was any reason to believe they would ever be available to anyone to hear.
Right.
And I was also, just a few years later, painting all these things I'd seen again, well before there was any reason to think anyone would ever see them. I was always writing, and I was already a published author, so writing seemed natural. But then I started receiving all the guidance towards the creation of the Out of Body Travel Foundation. And literally every step of the way it was mapped out for me. But I do want to give credit where credit is due, which is one of my previous publishers at Hampton Roads Publishing, Frank DeMarco, who's also an author in his own right. He had suggested it in the early 90s. He'd suggested it because he said you really have a niche market. And I think if you created your own publishing company for
Mm.
out of body travel, that you'd really have something. And what's interesting about it was that when I founded the Out of Body Travel Foundation, I had 3 books written at the time. And
Right.
now there's 100. But another interesting thing about that, I'll tell you another really amazing experience I had. I'll just kind of shorten it for you. But right about 6 months before the foundation was founded, I had a near-death experience.
Mm.
And I went up towards the tunnel, and my little dog was there, and that had been my
Yeah.
childhood dog. It was so cute. It's like, of all things, there's my cute
Yeah, it's
little
like a Dorothy experience almost.
dog.
Like Toto was there.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And usually in the out of body travel realms and near death realms, if you go through the light, you're not supposed to be allowed to come back. And you're generally not. And most near death experiencers talk about this. There is a point of no return.
Yes.
But Jesus came and he allowed me to go beyond, and he took me on this vast panoramic tour of the heavenly worlds. And it was so beautiful beyond words. But then he came back to the entry of the tunnel and he showed me, and I am simplifying it. You know, you can ask any questions you want. I'll just simplify it and bring
Okay.
it. 'Cause I'm trying to answer the question you're asking, but you can ask me whatever you want about it. But so we come back and he's telling me and he's showing me how the point of our earthly existence is to go from selfishness to selflessness. And he shows me that I have uh, achieved enough in this lifetime that I can leave. And he shows me how the world will remain selfish regardless of whether I stay or go. And at the time, I had 3 young kids. They're all adults now, and a husband at home, and he's still here. We're just older now. and I said to him, I said, well, if it's still my choice, I have to go home and raise those kids. And he said, okay. And then he said, well, then, and the reason I had a near-death experience was because I had a real serious heart condition, cardiomyopathy, and was having serious problems with it. It was a heart transplant kind of situation.
Right.
And so he said, I want you to go back and I want you to pray to receive a heart transplant then. And I said, I looked at him, I paused, and I just said, no, I can't ask for that. And he said, he didn't really say anything, kind of looked at me, you know, like what? And I said, well, I said, what I will do is I will go home and pray that the person who would have to die needlessly to provide me with a heart will be saved. And I will pray that this heart will do the best it can, and I'll take my chances with it. And I came, and he said, he was very quiet for a few seconds, and then he said, I grant that. And then, you know, shooting through space. And then in a few minutes, I was in this, what looked like a bookstore, and Jesus was sitting next to me on a chair. And he was showing me all of these books. And he said, we will make good use of you. And it was so interesting because I was pretty overwhelmed with it, because he said, those are yours. Those are your books, the ones you've written. And I was, I was like, how's that? I've got 3 books.
Yeah.
One of them's a children's book, and so I looked at them, and I tried to see what they were all about, because I was like, I got to figure this out. What am I supposed to write about? And then I'm sent back into the body. And that very day I was going in for a catheterization, and there was a chopper supposed to be waiting by, because they were planning to take me up to Denver to possibly wait for a heart transplant. I went in for the catheterization that day. It happened the previous night, and that morning we went into the hospital, and my heart had been showing that it had been doing worse, and that's why they were doing this. And I came out of the catheterization, and I was still in the hospital, and I asked the doctor, why am I still here? And he said, well, we can't really explain it, but your heart's doing, it's not healed, but it's doing better, and significantly better enough that you don't need to go. And so I kind of interiorly knew that I'd gotten a little bit of help there, but I kind of kept it to myself, because I didn't think that particular doctor was going to be open to it.
Right. Most of them won't be.
Yeah. And so when,
Yeah.
but he had showed me, again, as part of, the question you were asking, he had showed me that there would be all these books that he was going to ask me to write. And so, there were a lot of experiences that led up to these things. And then every book that I've ever written, and every series that I've ever written, they all come to me. The titles are given to me in these experiences, these out-of-body experiences, and it's all given to me through these experiences. And so it's I know Saint Therese of Lisieux used to say, I'm like a pencil in God's hand. It's kind of like I'm just a pencil and it's given to me. I don't really, it's funny because I tell people if it's not inspired, I can't write a word. But if it's inspired, it's like what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. And and I can share in that, and like I definitely know what you're talking about, and I believe a lot of our audience members out there, who 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 like this type of stuff, have definitely felt that. And I mean, has there ever been a time where you've been in privacy, and uh, oh man, I got so many questions now. So I mean, well,
Throw them at me,
let me
Marcus.
figure out how to word
I'm,
this.
I'm an open book.
Like well, have there ever been a time where you wanted to, let me word. Now you got me stunned.
No worries, no
I'm
worries.
I'm I'm definitely blown away here. So you know, when was the time, when was the time when you got over the fear? So like this, describe getting over the fear of like, you know, uh, traveling, uh, and just c- finding yourself being supernaturally being used. You know.
Well, that's a great question because it's very common for people to be a little bit fearful of it. Actually, first of all, fearful of it before they ever experience it. First of all, just because of the fact that it's an unknown. But then, secondarily, when people start experiencing, it's very common that people experience fear during the experiences because it's an unknown and it's something mysterious and different. And because some people will experience that vibrational state and just the intensity of it. A lot of people too, even even will just have a startled reaction. Like for instance, I always remind my readers, if you see one of your dead friends or relatives, you're very likely to have a very strong reaction. Wait a minute, I thought you were dead. You know, because when you see them, they are so tangibly alive. And it really, even though, when we're talking about it here after the fact, we're like, well, yeah, okay, so they're appearing to you in spirit, but you're so excited, and even that throws you back to the body. But when
Right.
you're in the original states where you're leaving the body, experiencing the vibrational state, if you start feeling fear, you're often shot right back to the body. But
Mm.
several things that people will fear will be that, seeing something and they're startled, usually a deceased loved one. Sometimes it's even, sometimes people are like, they see their angels around them, because sometimes people will um, open their eyes, their spiritual eyes, and they will see an angel or several, like three on each side. That's common. And they're just so excited. Excitement will pull you back in. And so what we have to learn to do over time is moderate our reactions. So first of all, if you're feeling excitement, you're going to um, talk yourself through this before your next experience, where, okay, I may see another person that, and I'm going to be aware this time. And it takes practice. But now, for like you had mentioned, you have some fears. What are the fears that you experience?
Yeah, now you're becoming my hero, Marilyn. so, so yeah, I definitely look up to you, Marilyn. Now,
Well, that's
I,
very
I,
kind.
the biggest fear I have, come to have now, and I never been the one to, absolutely, fear death. I got over the fear of death a long time ago. It's this feeling of being stuck. Uh,
Okay.
it's like, okay, what if I'm stuck now?
What if
Somewhere
you're
stuck
stuck
out.
outside of the body?
Yes, what if I'm stuck outside of the body? Okay.
Okay. That's
It's like
that's not
because
uncommon either. I get
yeah,
that a lot.
I was actually it was actually one time where it felt like I was like actually halfway in, halfway out,
Okay.
you know. And someone called my phone, and I don't know if this ever even happened to anyone, where like I was able to actually see one part of me in and one part of me out.
Oh yes, that's very common, very common.
Yeah.
And it is a common fear as well that people are worried that they won't be able to get back,
Hmm.
or in your case, like you said, stuck. In terms of, I can tell you over 32 years, it's never happened to me. But also, one of the things that I also do, read and study the ancient sacred texts. And one of the reasons I do that is because these ancient sacred texts, are the documents that go back 5,000, 10,000 years of the spiritual journeys of these prophets, saints, mystics, and sages. Ironically, those are the people who told me to found the Out of Body Travel Foundation. They're the same ones who told me to read the ancient sacred texts. And these ancient sacred texts contain these accountings of their experiences from throughout time. And what we see is that um,
Okay. Look, sounds like I'm losing you on the vocals.
oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, you're back now.
Okay. My apologies.
Yeah, I don't know if that was you on my side or yours. That was weird.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't either, but we'll figure that out, I guess. But but what can happen in terms of where people can get stuck has to do more with um, actual death encounters.
Okay.
So, for instance, like when someone um, goes through what you'll see, like in some near-death experiences. I don't want to scare people. In some near-death experiences, though, especially like when suicide is involved or something, there are some places where people have reported being stuck in a particular realm. But what I've experienced over decades, literally, is that when there is a call for help from any realm, whether it's heavens, hells, purgatories, and what we need to understand is there are an infinite number of heavens, hells, and purgatories. It's not one place, it's an infinite number of places. Um, that God immediately sends help, literally like that.
Yeah.
And so, one of the things that I was trained for was to intervene in purgatorial and hell realms when souls are ready to reach higher. So, even when a soul might feel like they're stuck. So, for instance, if you had an experience, and let's say, because people often will experience like they have some of their first experiences out of body and they go to a black void and they feel a little bit uh, stuck there. What might be happening is that they need to ask for assistance. Jesus Christ always said, ask and ye shall receive. And what I have learned is that it's always really important to ask. And, that's what we need to remember when we're in these experiences. If you do feel like you're stuck and you don't know what you need to do next, you pray and ask for the help, and you will receive it. This is one of the things that we see basically universally, even with people who have had near-death experiences to hell, where the minute that they ask God for help, it comes and everything changes. And
Yeah.
so asking God for help is like literally turning the lights on. You know what I mean? And so the reality, though, is that eventually you will find your way back. One of the things that I was taken through in my early travels was, how do you find your way back? So you'll go through some rituals of passage. There's a whole section that I write about, which are initiations into the mysteries and the rites of passage. This is more of an earlier type thing where you're taken somewhere and you have to learn how to get back to your body. one of the things that we learn very quickly is that our thoughts are literally the director now. So in the spiritual body, we don't see through physical eyes, we see through our whole consciousness. We hear through our whole consciousness. Movement then is directed by thought, not by physical moving legs. One of the reasons people feel stuck sometimes is because they'll start trying to move physically and they literally stand still. And so what you want to do then is remind yourself, I need to think myself there. So literally, if you think of your best friend, you're going to instantly travel to where they are. So if you're feeling like, oh, I'm in the black void, I don't know what to do next, I need to go back to my body. You know, you see what I'm saying? And
Right.
if it doesn't happen for you, then you say, God, I need your assistance. You know, and you make it clear. So always remember asking for help, and always remember that travel is instigated by thought. And sometimes what happens is we learn these things as we're going through the experiences. There's a lot of different stages. The two books that I often recommend for people as they're starting out are Come to Wisdom's Door, How to Have an Out-of-Body Experience, and The Mysteries of the Redemption, a treatise on out-of-body travel and mysticism. And as you travel through these, ironically, a lot of my readers do begin to have out-of-body experiences spontaneously. They're kind of programmed that way by the prophets, saints, mystics, and sages, and they're pretty neat. And so what happens is those things, you start learning these little details of what do you need to learn to avoid some of the, some of the common pitfalls. Come to Wisdom's Door is a very short book, but it goes through a lot of these common pitfalls that people will experience and what you can expect to happen around normal experiences. And then as you're reading through the Mysteries of the Redemption, you kind of follow the journey with me and learn these different aspects of the traveling experience as you go, and see how it evolves, because it evolves into a multi-dimensional, very deep journey into the purification of the soul. But you are learning a new way of being, because you are separating from a physical construct and you are going into a spiritual construct. And there are different laws which govern the spirit body versus the physical body. And I think that's where a lot of the fear comes from. It's because we are comfortable with, our daily living body that we are familiar with. And part of it is just allowing yourself to slowly adjust to that new reality, which a lot of people will find if they take this, consider, starting with these two books, it makes it less frightening, because you have it almost mapped out for you as to what do you expect and what types of things are you going to run into as obstacles and how you overcome them, and all of these different things that cause fears. There's a whole section in Come to Wisdom's Door that addresses specifically fears alone, and all the different types of fears and what we do to counter them when we're trying to go back out of the body, because there is a natural fear that a lot of people, most people, will actually have. In my own case, when I had my first out-of-body experience as an adult, I was terrified the first time. Right. Totally terrified. And it wasn't much, literally I rolled out of my body, was floating up to the ceiling, saw my body down below, and I was just terrified. But one of the things I did was, after I had that experience, I prayed and I said, I know this is something very important that I need to do, but it did scare me, and I'm asking for grace and assistance so that the next time I experience this, it won't be so frightening. And the next time, I had 3 angels, beautiful golden angels on each side, lifting me out. And it was so peaceful and calm. And they explained a whole lot of things to me that made it completely not scary, you know, and so
Yeah, that sounds peaceful.
it was
Yeah, it
great.
is. Yeah. So, wow, that's awesome. And
Yeah.
I mean, in my particular case, it's it's slight ellipsis that's happening, and I mean, and another question is coming your way. So,
Sure.
yeah, uh, so I'm not sure, but uh, so I'm always wondering, is there any correlation with sleep paralysis? You know,
A lot of people wonder that. Sleep paralysis is more of a physical state. It's not really a spiritual state. You know, the
mhm,
out of body experience is a spiritual state
right,
where the spirit is actually separating from the body. And the sensations that you experience, which are, you know, the loud engine noises and
right,
the vibrations that you feel, those are coming from the fact that your focus of concentration is going from the vibration of a physical body to the vibration of a spiritual body. The vibration is much higher in the spiritual realm. So you hear those loud engine roaring sounds because that's the higher vibration. You also feel that vibration because that's your spiritual vibration. The voices that you hear are the thoughts of humanity because you touch into that ability. So you're just literally hearing random thoughts that, you know, go around. And so that's why you have that different sensation. Sleep paralysis is more of a situation where you're in a deep state of sleep. And yes, people can be in deep sleep paralysis and also be traveling out of body, but it's not like necessary to be or required. And so it's more of a just a physical state. Um, Whereas the out of body travel experience itself is a spiritual state, but
right.
they can come at the same time, but they don't necessarily have to. Does that
Okay.
make sense?
Yeah,
Okay.
makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, we can pretty close here in time. So like, I mean, I can talk with you forever, though. Yeah, we gotta have you come back and visit us again, Marilyn.
I'd love
Definitely.
to.
You know, uh, so like, I mean, there's so much that you can offer up. I mean, you just a wealth of out of body knowledge. You're a walking encyclopedia. Like, man, you definitely gonna they're gonna have you write the whole section of it. So, man, definitely. Like, I have so many questions. So, I mean, with that being said, is there anything, like, I mean, it's not gonna be enough. But is there anything, final, that you want to offer us or tell us about, um, you know, that we haven't covered, although it's not gonna be enough.
Well, one thing I would just throw out there is, you know, when you read the mysteries of the redemption, you're going to enter into what's called the purification pathway. And then,
Okay.
you know, following that is the discrimination and discipline pathway. I'm just going to throw those tidbits out because what's real important about that is,
Yeah.
you know, most people are intrigued with the paranormal and supernatural because on some level they want to understand why we're here and what is the purpose of us being here and the meaning of life. I'm going to tell you right now, the purification pathway. This is what the prophets, saints, mystics, and sages have been trying to get across to us for thousands of years in the ancient sacred texts. And this is what all the mystics from all the centuries, all the eons, all the religions have been trying to get across to us. And so get ready to start a real adventure into the true meaning and purpose of why you're here. It has to do with the purification of the soul and overcoming the things that are holding you back from the reunification with higher source. So there's a lot there. And, you know, if you're coming to the website, come to Wisdom's Door and the Mysteries of the Redemption first if you're just starting out. And, you know, people can send me emails and tell me where they're at. And I can tell them what I think they should start with if they're not just beginners. And And, we have spiritual counseling available. I do spiritual counseling. They can sign up for that at the site one-on-one. And we
Hmm.
also have lots of things available on the site. Course of study goes into a great deal of depth. And, we have a lot of people who are having profound experiences. And, this is not just a paranormal uh, phenomenon. It truly is like a key to understanding your soul and understanding why you're here. And so,
Yeah.
there's a mystery there that I invite everyone to come check out ofbodytravel.org.
Yeah, it's definitely something, it's definitely out there, and we just gotta reach for it. And so
Yep.
it's
Mhm.
special. So yeah, I've been trying to reach it, understand it for all this time, and I maybe maybe I get out of beginner's level. So,
Well, that's okay. That's okay. We all start there, and
yeah,
most of my readers start there, and then, my books will take you all the way. We have 9 books in the how-to department, and every
yeah,
one of them takes you into a total different mystery of knowledge of
yeah,
out-of-body experiences. It's really an adventure. It's an exciting adventure, but it's also so needed for each one of us.
yeah. I can just see my assigned angels laughing at me, like, what is he doing?
Don't worry, mine have had themselves a good time too, and I'm sure most of them
Yeah,
do.
yeah. Okay. So, if you haven't already, just leave your contact information for us. One more time, leave that website link. And then we'll close out the show.
Outofbodytravel.org, the Out of Body Travel Foundation, and you are
Yeah.
welcome. And join our forums. We have huge forums. We have over 840,000 people on our forums. Join us there, and you can talk to other people who are going through the process, who have gone through it, and you can have, we've got a lot you can check out there.
Awesome. Beautiful. All right. Well, we just had a conversation with Marilynn Hughes. Make sure you do join us. We're going to have her back. We're going to adopt her into the family. She's already adopted. She don't even know it. So until next time, we just had a conversation with Marilynn Hughes. This is your host, Marcus Hart. This is the Beyond the Natural show where we have real experiences, real story. And remember, if it doesn't look ordinary, if it doesn't look like it happens on Earth, it is beyond the natural.